Hello, everyone. We're going to do some learning together again. In this session, we're going to take a look at how to create a digital breakout. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. And so in the first session, if you haven't watched that one, we take a look at how to just what a digital breakout is, how do we plan for one, and then just some initial steps on how to start creating clues. But in this one, we're going to continue with where we left off and finish putting it all together. Now you will notice that there is a bit.ly link to this series of slides. You can feel free to use it. I will leave it live and open. And so if you want to access the resources or just go back and check some things, I will leave these slides open and accessible. Now, I want to make note that this is an advanced session. So we're going to be taking a look at oh, Lord have mercy. Can everybody just be quiet? All right, let's try this again. Hello, everyone. We're going to do some learning together again. In this session, we're going to take a look at part 2 of how to create a digital breakout. In part 1, we started the process. We did some planning, talked about what it is, and got started with creating clues. And in this session, we will take a look at how we pull it all together. What are the final pieces we need to keep in mind? You'll notice that there is a bit.ly link at the bottom, and that is to access these particular slides. So I will leave that link live at any point. If you want to come back to access the resources or the links, by all means, please feel free to do that. Now, I want to make note that this is an advanced session. And it's not advanced because what we're doing is highly technical. But what makes it advanced is we are using multiple applications. We are using kind of a variety of skills in order to design and build. And so you have to have a fairly efficient way and fairly comfortable. You have to be fairly comfortable with using these different applications and being able to switch because we do have several balls in the air between this application, this application, this application, and even just the concept of making clues and pulling it all together can sometimes be tricky. So just keeping in mind that this session is an advanced session. However, it is appropriate for all grade levels and all content areas. Just because the design process is a little more demanding, it doesn't mean that it is not appropriate for any grade level. I've made digital breakouts for as low as grade 2 and certainly as high as high school. So they are certainly appropriate for any age student, simply because of the nature of a challenge. And so giving them a story or a challenge that they need to solve, finding clues and solving them appeals to almost everybody. So just be aware that this is an appropriate activity for any grade level, any age, and any content area. All right. So in our time together, we're just going to do a quick review of part 1. We're going to talk about how to create the locks and pull it all together in a Google site, and then just some final checks to keep in mind before you press the send button. So just a quick review. In part 1, we talked about what a digital breakout is, why it might be valuable, and why students might be engaged in a digital breakout as opposed to traditional practice of learning activities. So because there's a story or a challenge involved, the student tolerance, or anyone really, but the tolerance for things that might normally frustrate them or be difficult, the tolerance is actually much higher because there is a story we're trying to complete. There are clues we are trying to find. And so students are actually a lot more engaged in this type of activity because the learning and the practice is just inherent into the challenge and into the story as opposed to being the story. And then some of the other things we talked about in session 1 is what to do to get started. So first we create a folder where all of the files go, the things that we create, and then the planning that we need to do to get started. So first, what's the content area? What's the curricular learning outcome that you want to base this digital breakout on? What's the story going to be? Because the story is highly important. And then start to give some thought to what are the clues? What are the activities that they need to solve and go through in order to unlock the locks? And then we started talking about clues. Now, before I talk about the applications we discussed, I just want to reference here is a planning template that you can use to start designing the digital breakout room. I just want to throw a quick pitch to ditchthattextbook.com. He's got some really great resources over there. But you'll notice just on the left here that here are some of the applications we talked about on how to create clues. Google Docs, certainly JPEGs, we'll use those today as well. Creating your own customized maps using the My Maps feature in Google Maps. Creating your own videos could be a clue using Screencastify. Pulling in videos from YouTube. We will do a lot of playing with hyperlinks today, but I would say the two winners, if you don't use any other applications, the two that will get you the best bang for your buck are Google Forms and Google Drawings. And you can create some really effective clues just through those two alone. Okay. Now, if we were in the webinar, then we would be having a conversation right now. Just what are the clues that you came up with? How did you design them? What application did you use? What does it look like? What would you be asking the kiddos to do? But we're not in a webinar together. So I would suggest if you have an idea, just pop it into the comments below. And then we can continue that conversation and still have a collaborative practice by not having to reinvent the wheel and just using each other as a resource. So please feel free to pop some of your ideas in the comment section below. Now, the next step, once you've created all your clues and you have these files all stored in your Google Drive, the next step is to create the locks. And we're going to use a Google form to create the locks. Now, before I pop into a form, I just want to identify a couple of things. One, we're going to use a short answer feature in Google Forms. We are going to use response validation because we don't want to have them click submit in order to know if they got the lock unlocked. We want them to get that instant feedback. And so response validation allows for that to happen. We're going to use the custom error text. And so that is just an indicator if they got it incorrect. And you can use that as a hint or something like that. And we're also going to make use of the required question toggle on. There are some other things you can add, like video timers, and you can customize the appearance of it, but those will be the things that we take a peek at primarily. So I'm going to pop into a Google form that I have just created. And remember the top tip, if you need to create a brand new one from scratch with nothing in it, just type in forms.google.com/create and it'll open a brand new one for you without having to go through Drive and then add. So right here, all I've done at this point is I have changed the banner in the form. So I've customized the color of it a little bit. I've put some instructions in, but I'll walk you through that. The first thing that we want to take a look at is just the settings. And I'm going to walk us backwards. So first things first, we want to keep it fairly open. And so there aren't a lot of features in here that we are going to make use of. So in quizzes, we're not making this a quiz. In presentation, the only thing that I will often make use of here is just that confirmation message. So if they are able to press submit, then it might be something like, congratulations, you have solved the challenge, you have figured out Mrs. Filipchuk's magic on how she was able to make it rain over her garden, but now everything's back to normal. So you can put kind of a little bit of a message there. Now, I just want to make note that if you want more of a linear breakout, in other words, you have your clue and one lock. And then in order to get to the next lock, then you go to the next clue and the next lock. So you can make it linear so that you don't have all the clues and all the locks. And I would suggest that to make it linear, that after the kids unlock the first clue, then you actually put the link to where they need to go next right here. So whether it's another page on the Google site, whether it is a Google drawing or something of the like, but I would put that next breadcrumb, that next step, that link would go here in that confirmation message. Okay. Other than that, then you click into general. Now, if this is an activity where you need to get the data around who was able to complete it and who wasn't, then I would collect email addresses, because then you've got an indication as to who did it and who was unsuccessful or who hasn't done it yet. Now you could do that through Google Classroom. You could just leave all of this entirely open and then have the kids click on turn it in if they've been able to do it. But otherwise, if you need the more that hard data, then select collect email addresses. You can do some limiting, but like I said, for the most part, I leave it pretty open. Okay, and so then now we're just going to click save, and those are the settings. The other thing that we're going to do is make sure that you provide some instructions right off the top. So in here, I just simply put enter the answers into the locks below. Be sure to use uppercase letters where applicable. And when you have successfully opened all the locks, click the submit button. So just some really simple instructions. Now, certainly you can insert additional clues here if you want. This is another opportunity, but again, I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. So now we're going to go ahead and add the spaces where our locks are going to go. And again, you can make this as simple or as difficult as you want. But typically, I keep it, I use a fairly standard strategy. And so I just identify the type of lock that it's going to be. You could say clue number 1, but certainly the kids need to know what needs to go in the field. So I'm going to call this a 5-letter lock. This needs to be a short answer. I'm going to make sure it's required. And then I'm just going to make use of the description here. And then I'm going to below just identify the reminder that they need to use uppercase letters. Okay. And then underneath that, what I do want now, because we want that instant feedback, so I'm going to select response validation. Now it's a 5-letter lock, so that means we're using letters. And so now I can go under here and identify how I'm going to make sure that they know what to put in. Now you're going to stop me and say, Nikki, there's a text one. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it actually doesn't work very well. And here's why. So if you select contains, so I'll just toggle this real quick. Contains, doesn't contain. I can put in an email address or a URL. But if I select contains and I say that the correct answer is light, anybody could then put in light bulb and it would be marked correct. D-light, it would be marked correct. And simply because that light is in there, it would accept it as correct. So this is not going to work the way that we want it to. So instead of using text, we're going to use regular expression. And we're going to say matches. And so this needs to be light. And if they don't get it right, I'm just going to put still locked, try again. Now, as I mentioned, you could use this as another spot to put a clue or a hint or something like that, but I'm just going to leave it simple. Okay, so that is a letter lock. Now I'm going to go ahead and add another one. And before I do that, just as a reminder, if you want to make this linear, then in a linear digital breakout, so there's one clue for one lock, and then there's another clue for another lock, and they just kind of have to follow the breadcrumbs all the way to the end. Then instead of having all of your locks in one Google form, then you would have one lock per form. And then you would create another form with one lock and then another form with another lock. So I'll show you how just kind of how to create the locks here, but you'll have to design appropriately based on whether yours is linear or not. So this one is going to be a 4-number lock. And again, it already is making the adjustments for me. So short answer. I'm not going to put in a hint for this one because there isn't much of a hint to give. It is going to be number. That's an appropriate one here. And I'm going to change this to not is number, but equal to. Okay, because then that means that I have the correct field and I have the custom error text. So I'm going to say this is just 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, still locked. Try again. All right. Now one more, and I will make this the color lock. Okay. Now this could be the direct color lock, the direction lock, it doesn't matter. Okay, either or. And then again, I'm just going to put in that reminder for the description because it is letters. Reminder, use uppercase letters. Okay, now this is going to be the same as the text one above. Choose regular expression. We're going to choose matches. And then, the only other thing I would add is we're going to change this. Sorry. If it's a color lock or a direction lock, then you need to provide a little bit of a legend for them. So if it is a direction, it's kind of up, down, left, right. If it is on a map, north, south, east, west. So you just need to identify that. If it's color, then P is purple, B is blue, Y is yellow, and so on and so forth. So you just need to put that in for them. So regular expression matches, and the pattern is purple, blue, yellow, blue. And if they don't get it, still locked, try again. Okay, so that is how you create your form. Once you've got your form complete, I'm just going to leave it open, but it is good and ready to go. Now we have all of our pieces. We have the form, and we have all of the clues and all of the files and the pieces we are using to guide the kids through are all ready to go. So now we need to assemble it. So we are going to use a Google site in order to pull it all together. Now, here are some things to consider. In a Google site, you want to be mindful of the organization. Remember, simpler is better. If you make it too complicated, the kids will get lost and they will lose that motivation to keep going through. It just turns into too much of a needle in a haystack. So I would suggest one of two things in terms of your organization. Either put everything on the home page, so all your clues and your form, everything is in the one spot, or make it a little bit more linear so that there's kind of a form and then a clue, and then that will unlock them to the form, to another space and a clue. And so I'll show you how to do that by hiding some of the navigation. The other option is you could separate it out, but just then make it clear. We don't want them to get lost. We will use hyperlinks in our design. You'll notice that a lot. And then at the end, we want to make sure that we preview and publish. Now, again, before we pop into the site, I want to show you a couple of notes. So the first thing, if what we pull into the site is something that the students do not need to manipulate, in other words, they don't need to move things around, they don't need to edit it, if they don't need to do any of those things, so it could be an image, a Google form, a video, even a PDF or a Google Doc that they just need to see, then we can pull those things and embed them. In other words, they are live and visible directly in the site. However, if what the students need to do is manipulate it, so it could be a Google drawing, a Google slide, a Google Doc, and they actually need to manipulate and move things around or add or change things right within that file, then we actually want to force a copy for that kid. Because if we embed it, then everybody is going to go into that one file and make changes in that one file. And it is not going to work the way that we want it to. So the way that we do that is by using my top tip that I've mentioned in the past. Remember how I've said you can create something new by just adjusting the URL at the top. So if you want a new Google form, it's forms.google.com/create. There's actually a way to force a copy of any of these files by adjusting the URL. So I will show you how to do that. Okay, so we're going to pop over to a Google site. And again, to create a brand new one, it is as simple as, here, I'm just going to move this over here. It is sites.google.com/create. It'll create you a brand new one. And all I've done so far is I have kind of adjusted the theme a little bit, changed how it looks, and I have added the challenge text. So I'm just going to go back and adjust it real quick. So I can choose, you can change that a little bit. I'm even going to change the image. And I can either go search for one, or I can pull one up that I have already. Mine's got to do with weather, so I'm going to search for something that has to do with weather. And because it's a banner, I'm actually going to put in the word banner, and that's going to restrict the sizes and will look a little bit nicer when you've selected the one that you want. So I'm going to pull this one in, click select, and there we go. Okay. And you'll notice it does a little bit of customizing, making sure that everything is nice. Now, the other thing I'm going to add real quick, I'm just going to, we're done. I double click to get this little menu to pop up. I'm going to add a text box and I'm going to change it to a title. And so I'm just going to say rain, rain, go away, and we'll center it. Okay. You can also put the title of the site here and here. And then the other thing I want to show you real briefly is if I click on settings, I can change the navigation. So, and this is more for if you are making it linear. If everything's going to be in one site, then you probably don't need anything beyond a home page. But if you need additional pages attached to this home page, then you can choose where your navigation goes. You can either have it across the top or you can have it on the side. So in other words, those other pages are across the top or along the side. So I just use the top because it's easy. Okay, so as I mentioned, now we can start to pull stuff in. Now, the first thing I'm going to pull in is the form because I want the students to be able to see that. So I'm going to go into Google Drive. I'm going to pull this over here. And here's the form I want to pull in. So I'm going to click Insert. And there it is. Now, in this case, again, I'm really designing more from all the clues and all the locks are in one page. The alternative is, again, just to make things clean, I'm going to add this. Whoops, I want this to be home. I'm just going to adjust this. So we are going to, oh, no, it's live. There it is. Okay. So I might add another page and 5-letter lock. This might be my 4-digit lock. So again, I can make this as easy or challenging as I want for the kids, and I can leave that open, right? Like, so the kids can see that. I'm just going to change this so it's all the same formatting. 5-letter lock. Okay, so now I could just have the form on the front, but then the clues themselves are in each of these. And so it creates a little bit of organization. This could be appropriate for younger grades. So again, the focus is on the activities and not finding the needle in a haystack in terms of where are the clues and how do I know? And so that more age appropriate might be identifying this for them. However, if you do want to make it linear and then what I would suggest is that you go ahead and insert these pages, but then hide them from navigation. So I'm clicking on the triple dot. I'm going to hide them. Same with this one. I'm going to hide it. So it's still there, but the kids just can't see it. Okay. And then when I need to provide the link to in the Google form to say, here's your next breadcrumb, here's where you go next, then I would get the link for this particular page. So if I click on here, I'm going to say copy publish site link. I'm going to copy that, and then that's what I'm going to paste into that congratulations message or that confirmation. Okay, but I'm going to go back to the home page, and now I'm going to start pulling some other things in. So I've got my Google form. It is there. Now I also want to add a Google drawing because that is one of my clues. So I'm going to pop into my Google drawing, and this is what I was mentioning before. I don't want the kids to come all into this one and edit this one because then one person will figure it out and then it's pretty much solved for the next person, or it's really not and they haven't and they're just confused. So I'm going to click share. I'm going to say anyone can view. Now, you could make this really open and say that anyone with the link, it doesn't matter if you're in the domain or not. But just for now, I'll say copy link and click done. Now, when I go back here, let's make sure that I do this correctly. Because I don't want to embed this form in there, then what I'm actually going to do is create a hyperlink. Now, I could either take a picture of this and insert it in, Or I can just pull in another picture and use that as a hyperlink. I'm just going to, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to pull in another picture. Oh, not upload. Sorry, it's not the right one. I want images. I'm going to select, I'm going to do a Google image search, and I want a seagull. Okay. So let's use this guy right here. He seems pretty cute. All right, now I'm going to insert this. Now you will notice you have some flexibility in terms of editing the site. You can move it up and down. You don't have tons of flexibility. This is not, Google Sites is not a site builder that gives you tons of customization opportunity. And really, because they want to keep it simple. The goal is to keep these tools simple so that anybody can use them. So there you go. So I can put this wherever I want. Now I've got this image in there, and now I need to create a hyperlink. And so I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click paste. Now, here's the part that's important. I'm going to, anything at where it says edit and beyond, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to delete it. And from there, I'm going to click copy. And so just like the forms.google.com/create, by changing that URL extension to copy, it's going to force a copy of it. So I'm going to now click apply. Now, cross your fingers, this should work. And now I'm going to click on it, and let's see what happens. Da, 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 da. And that's exactly what I want. So the kids will see, will come to this. It'll ask them, would you like to make a copy? They'll click, because they always do. They'll click make a copy, and then they'll have their own version to manipulate. So that's exactly how we wanted that to work. Okay. So that's how you do that. So we've talked about how to kind of pull things in just by going to your Google Drive. We've talked about making hyperlinks, and even you'll notice down here as well, you can also go in and add YouTube, and you can embed YouTube videos directly in here. You can embed maps directly in here. So even just by going down, you can add a button. So if you click a specific button, it will take you somewhere. But these couple of things of both pulling things in and embedding them and creating hyperlinks should give you the skills that you need to kind of build the site and pull it all together. Now, little tips that I like to be sometimes sneaky with is that sometimes I will actually add things that just because it keeps the kids guessing. And so I will sometimes add like images that aren't hyperlinked and images that are hyperlinked. And so the kids just really do have to pay attention to what is there. But the nice thing, I'm just going to go to the preview side. The nice thing is that it's easy for them to figure out if they're paying attention. So, I mean, I can see that by hovering my mouse over these things that there's nothing there. Again, nothing here. But I can tell that this is a hyperlink. There's something here. I need to find it because my mouse changes to this little guy, right? And so the kids will know just by moving their mouse around, oh, there's a clue there. I need to click on that. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to exit out of preview. Now, once you are done assembling it, then you need to go ahead and publish it. So we're going to click on, you can do some playing with publish settings, but certainly you're going to go and publish the site because right now it's just in edit mode and nobody else can see it except for you. So now I have already published this one. So I'm going to go into settings. And now when you click on publish, it's going to ask you what's the web address. You can customize this. And it'll give you some additional pieces. How public is it? Is it just to the edu domain or is it beyond? And so you can make some changes. And then you're going to go ahead and click save and publish. Now, just know that if you ever need to make changes to it because it's not working, then you just go to the edit side of it. You make your changes and then you publish it again. Now, if you want to take it off and you unpublish it so it's no longer available, just click on your down arrow and click on unpublish. Okay. So you can make it visible and then you can pull it away again, but you can also keep it visible while you're making changes. So it's all okay. Promise. All right. So that is, again, how to make the locks, how to build the form, or how to build the site. And once you've done that, you're really at the tail end of things. So I'm just going to pop through real quick and we're going to take a look at, again, keep it simple. It does not have to be complicated. It can be really quite simple because you want the focus to be on the learning outcomes and not on the needle in the haystack. And yes, for those really engaged kids, they will persist past the difficulties, but not all of them will. And you really do want all of your kids to be engaged in the process. Before you share it, before you send the link to your kids, then you do want to perform a mock test. In other words, send the link to a partner, or see if you can take a look at the published side and go through all of it. Make sure all your files and your links are live, that the kids wouldn't experience any blocks, that they can access everything, that everything is open, that they need to be open. And then once you've checked that, then click share and send that link. As I mentioned before, here are some really good samples. This one here, this Swedish chef, this one is an example of really where all the locks are there and all the clues are there. But this pizza parlor one has some more linear aspects to it. So kind of you do this and then it takes you here and then it takes you here and then it takes you here. So you do have to follow the breadcrumbs. But there are some additional options there for you to take a look at. And like always, I never like to leave you where you have to figure things out on your own. So remember, there are templates available that you can use, from Google Drawings to Google Slides. Black Gold has created a bank of templates. Same with Edmonton Catholics, MTech team. There are templates there. Even this sandbox, there are a number of digital breakouts that you can at least look at and take a peek at their clues and give you some ideas there. And then, of course, please feel free to check out the YouTube channel created by our education services team, because we continue to add content to it to help you be creative and innovative and just really thoughtful with what you are providing to your kiddos in this season. Okay. As always, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help collaborate with you. We can problem solve together. And even if you need to send me on a hunt to help figure things out for you, I'm happy to do that as well. In the meantime, have a great one. Have fun creating, and you're doing an amazing job. Take care.